Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Ritchie of the MHRT Network. Over to this way here is a sick, real Alex Givens, who is already throwing in the white towel. That is fantastic. Guys,
No.
automatically now moved up in the divisional rankings.
Picking it up.
This is great. I love it. Oh, no, just kidding. You can catch Alex's stuff over there on Arrowhead Addict. Written content, some of the best out there. And Coach has not told me, you have not told me, but at some point we will start getting into fantasy stuff again with a lightning fast podcast.
I think here in the next couple weeks we'll be firing that back up.
Fantastic. And then we got down below here, Mr. Jack Hanna representing his Las Vegas Raiders. Jack, thank you for joining the show again. And welcoming back after a very long hiatus, who is clearly more tanned now than when he left.
Yeah.
So some vacation happened or something.
Yeah, we went to Mexico.
Right.
Nice.
We have Mr. Roberto.
We got to give him this welcome back music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Marco. Here it comes.
Oh God.
Where's the trumpet? He's back, dude. Roberto!
Oh man.
Yeah, I thought you were trying to avoid me for a while.
Oh man, no, it's just been
he was.
insanely-
He just won't admit it on live air.
Yeah, listen, man. It's just been insanely busy. I was doing an internship here locally with for a summer league baseball team, trying to get a little bit of broadcast experience with them.
Nice.
And then lined up. Just so happened that the last week that the internship ended, the very next week, I had my vacation planned since like March. So it was just a huge cluster, you know what. But hopefully now trying to get back onto it just in time for, the start of football. Just very excited here. We have training camp that got started, so definitely a good time for me to get back on the pod.
Yeah, we've got some obviously interesting news coming out of training camp for all of our teams, I would imagine. I know for sure the Broncos have some interesting news that came out of training camp the last couple days. So I think some of it's good, some of it's not good. But I think that it's important to get into that. As we are getting closer to when we're getting deeper into camp and all that kind of stuff, there is the bad time, the I time, the bad word that occurs when training camp and everything starts, which is the injuries, which are inevitable. It's a contact sport, and it's just kind of one of those things. And I'll start off with my Denver Broncos, and we'll kind of go around the room here and talk about your teams as well. My Denver Broncos have had several guys start to come back from injuries after last year in the offseason, which is wonderful. But unfortunately, we also had one of the most versatile O-linemen on the Denver Broncos roster. He plays left tackle, left guard, and right guard. It is a rare combo to have a dude that's that versatile across the offensive line. But Quinn Bailey is that guy for the Broncos. And for those who are not familiar with the Broncos roster inside and out, he kind of does stand out a little bit because he's got like blonde hair with like kind of like the Viking looking.
He's a
beard.
Targaryen.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
He's a dragon rider. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
whoa.
I think that's going to be a big loss, I think, for the Broncos, because he's actually the guy that comes in as the sixth lineman in our jumbo packages. He's also a guy that is for sure active on game day because he can just play everything.
Ultimate fail-safe.
And
yeah,
yeah. I was just gonna. The sixth lineman is one of the most important. It might be more important than
backup QB.
Right as important as like your starting five, because someone's gonna get hurt. Like just the nature of playing O-line, and you're gonna have to be able to plug someone in and not like miss a beat. So
Yeah, he's certainly going to be missed. I do wish him a speedy recovery.
what did he injure?
He broke his ankle.
Oh, 6 weeks.
Like this was not just like, hey, I pulled a muscle, or that's unfortunate. Like hyperextended elbow, 5 weeks or something or whatever. Oh, no. This is like surgery, bad, broken ankle.
The works.
So you're talking, 6-8 weeks plus rehab. Likely gone for the season.
Gone for the season?
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
so
broken
you're
ankle.
gone. Well, yeah, an ankle. Usually, a broken bone is like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. But if he's got to do rods or pins and stuff like that, wow.
Yeah. It's there wasn't a ton of information that came out in terms of all of the details, but the after kind of camp presser was not reassuring. I don't know how else to put it. Like a lot of times the coaches would be like, "Yeah, it was a break, but you know what? It'll be okay." Like a quick surgery.
That probably tells you his foot was like
Yeah.
So
not pointed where it should not be.
Ricky's leg, before.
I if it's anything like what I had, it's actually not so much the repair that your body does to get you back up and ready. That is about a 5 to 8 week process, depending on how fast you actually heal. The two bigger issues that he's going to run into is going to be the muscle atrophy that you end up getting as a result of having to keep it immobile for at least a period of time. Although rehab now is a lot different than it used to be. The rehab now, they actually start having you put weight bearing on it at like week 6 and 7. So it's totally different now than the way it used to be. But the other issue, and perhaps the bigger issue, is the mental issue, like the mental problem, which is, you literally, it was a month and change ago where your foot was not in one piece. Right, like I don't care who you are. That takes a mental adjustment for you to kind of get around.
Yeah, and just playing aggressively high contact sport, like you're gonna come back. I mean, some guys don't care. Like I was fortunate enough that when I came back from ACL, I didn't really think about it. But like it's easy to think about it, especially if it happens in not a game setting. Like
Practice.
Not very high intensity at this stage of where we're at.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, damn, like this could really happen at any time. But like I always think what a buddy told me that went through an ACL, he's like, once you have the surgery, you're fine. Like everything's fixed. It's like you said, mental, and then just getting your mobility back to where it was before. Are the two biggest hurdles, and more so the mental side of things for sure.
Well, especially for a guy, that big too. If you're an offensive lineman, that's a lot of weight to be putting on that.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to overcompensate in fear of hurting that right side again, you're just going to end up getting something else hurt because you're not playing to your equal strength. You're trying to lopside it, and that's what ends up, putting you out for longer.
So that leads me to another question. If he's your number 6 guy, how many extra linemen, since he's the guy who's the jack of all trades that can fill all the different backup positions, how many more extra offensive linemen are the Broncos going to have to keep?
I'm not sure if it's going to be additional offensive linemen, Jack, although I think that's a great question. And this is exactly why people tune into the show, is that we can have these types of candid conversations with one another about roster spots like this. If you want my honest opinion, I think what you're going to end up with here as a result is you're either going to keep different linemen than you would have otherwise kept on your low roster. So like not necessarily more of them, but like Quinn could have filled that right tackle spot, for example, if you needed a dude got injured. Well, now you might actually keep, rather than Quinn and somebody else, now that somebody else may have to try to be slid onto the practice squad, but you're going to then keep a pure tackle, for example, like Pavlovsky or someone along those lines, although I think he was probably going to make the roster anyways, generally from what I gather, but someone like that, you're going to keep on your team, because a tackle spot, especially a swing tackle, if you can kind of end up playing both, if need be, that is a very, very valued position. But the Broncos haven't had to keep that swing tackle spot, generally speaking, because Quinn Bailey was able to play guard and swing tackle. So I don't think it's keeping extra, although, Sean Payton could go ahead and prove me wrong, come roster cut down and so be it. But I think he has to now keep different guys with the future onlook of just the fact that he doesn't have the Swiss Army knife option at this point. And the other thing that we don't know, and this is, we're going to start seeing preseason stuff and see kind of who pops and who doesn't. We may start seeing other linemen in that back portion of the roster, the guys that are playing like swing guards and swing tackles. We might start seeing them play, if they really like a guy and he's, say, with the twos, we may see that guy play a different position with the threes to get him experience like they did with Quinn Bailey at the tackle spots or the guard spots. So that's another potential that you could see. And frankly, I think Sean Payton's a savvy enough coach that he would do something like that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the toughest part there about trying to replace somebody, like you said, that is able to fill so many holes as a backup position is, well, A, you're probably not going to find somebody, of his talent.
Mold.
Yeah, exactly. That's set mold. And at worst, or I should say at best, you're looking at two guys to replace him on the roster. And even then, they might not replace him at the same level. So maybe you're looking at three guys. So yeah, it's these types of injuries that people may not really, the average fan may look at it and be like, oh, it's a 6-0 lineman, big whoop, but it really is, a big loss. Yeah, it changes a lot of things, and it sucks to have it happen this early.
Yeah, because a lot of teams don't keep like 10 linemen and say, okay, this is group 1, this is group 2. A lot of teams keep like 7, maybe 8. And one of them's pretty dependent on being the swing guy that can play guard and tackle, or center and guard, vice versa. And that's, losing a player like that, certainly changes the way you approach evaluating these guys, because now you're, like you said, Robert, probably looking for an extra lineman that you weren't preparing to have to take. But, you could also, it opens up opportunities for a lot of the UDFAs that I know Rich has talked about in the offensive line room. And you might find you have another Quinn Bailey, out there that you wouldn't have known. So
there's a silver lining potentially to this. There really is. But at least in the immediate future, it is a big blow. Yeah. It's a big deal. Like this is not. Yeah. This is not one of those, oh well moments. This is not like hey, the 9th wide receiver on the depth chart went down.
Damn.
Oh no.
What was his name?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me look up. What was that guy's name again?
Who?
Oh man.
Ed, nice to join us. Thank you again. DZ again. Always great. Oh, we got Robert here in the house too. Robert Penna, thank you for coming in. So Quinn Bailey did go down. That was a huge. That is going to be felt. Like you're going to start seeing, I think, even game plan changes if they don't find someone that they think can actually kind of fill that gap or that void. What you'll probably start seeing is more like 2 tight end sets, for example. So the 12 personnel versus the 11 personnel. You'll see perhaps even 13 personnel, where you end up where you keep 2 tight ends flanking the tackles, and then you have the third tight end, which then acts as your big receiving threat kind of thing. If you feel that you really can't replace someone like Quinn there, but he's been a bit of a staple since about 2019 on our roster, where he has made the 53-man roster. He has been in the bottom end, if you will, of the lineman group. But when you can play 4 spots and you can play it at a high level, you all of a sudden skyrocket up, even being active on game day. right? Just because it's just, you can do it. So that's the kind of the Broncos injuries update. There's a few guys that have started to kind of come back in. You got Jonas Griffith, who was off with an injury, who's now come back, and he is definitely in the mix per Sean Payton in terms of the inside backer competition. You got who was the other one? Greg Dulcich, who's come back and has managed to, not hurt himself again after 2 days, which is a miracle in and of itself. And he's still healthy, well, at least claiming to be. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens there, and see if he can kind of push through and finally, play a season, because that'd be nice. But we'll wait and see what happens there. I'm really looking forward to, just in that tight end group, is Yasmin, because I really, really want to see if he outshines the fact of where he's going to be sitting on the depth chart, and if we start seeing him kind of just go right through the ranks in the tight end room and maybe start becoming that third or fourth or maybe even, jockeying at least in terms of that tight end room to make that 53-man roster, because I do think he has he's well-rounded. He can block, he can catch. He's a tall guy, bigger framed, and if he can pop, a guy like that can pop in preseason, that you often find them making the 53-man roster. So anyways, that's the kind of the Broncos injury kind of update from camp. Unfortunate news on Bailey, but throw over to you, Alex, and talk about the Chiefs.
Like just injuries?
Keep in mind that you threw in the white towel earlier.
Yeah. Chiefs, injury-wise, they haven't had anything that's really transpired, during camp that's, I'd say, like to a Quinn Bailey level of concern. Justin Watson did injure his foot, and I think that out of the injured people that weren't coming into the camp on the PUP list is probably the most concerning one. But at the same time, I think, it's more damning to him than the group as a whole, because he's kind of battling, I'd say, for a spot anyways, just with the turnover and amount of people they brought in the wide receiver room. Other than that, there were some injuries today to some pretty key players. Nick Bolton had an elbow injury. Kadarius Toney had an ankle injury. And then some, a tight end and two linemen that are, kind of towards the bottom of the chart also had some hamstring knee injuries. Out of all those, I thought it was important that I think Reed later today said that, Nick Bolton, it wasn't anything serious, and, it was more of a precaution that he just left practice, which is always a good sign, because, he's your green dot, the heart and soul of your defense.
I'd probably give that to Chris Jones.
Yeah, I guess I use heart and soul.
I get what you mean.
Alignment and calls and everything else. You don't really want to have someone else learn the ropes of that, or change that. So, all good on that. Otherwise, Nazeez Johnson, a corner, and Justin Watson were the only two that were out. And then, Derek Nandi and Charles Omenihu, but they were already on the PUP list as we started things off. So, other than that, we saw Hollywood Brown, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Jones, and Jalen Watson all come back to practice today. Hollywood Brown and Clyde were full go. Chris Jones and Watson were not involved in any team periods or anything, which is also what we've seen Joe Thuney kind of progressing through as he's coming back from tearing his pec against the Bills in the, towards the end of last season. Really so far it outside of your, I'd say, normal wear and tear of just going through the camp grind, the only concerning injury is Justin Watson. And like I said, I'm not even confident that they were going into this season with him as a lock in the wide receiver room. So, I think it's kind of similar to what I said as a glass half full. It only opens up opportunities for some of these younger, practice squad receivers that have been around, or, some of these undrafted free agents they brought in to maybe earn a spot and be a cheaper option that does the same stuff Justin Watson does. But yeah, for the most part, like I said, been blessed to be a healthy camp so far without any growing concerns. And, everyone that was significantly injured going into the season seems to be progressing on track. So all is good from the injury front right now, knock on wood, pass to Robert, since he hasn't talked in ages.
Yeah, appreciate it. Glad to be back.
And actually, maybe should have saved you for last. Chargers, you might have a long list.
Yeah, I mean, Chargers have been kind of, I'm knocking on wood right now, fortunate to say the least through training camp so far. There was a bit of a scare there with Rashawn Slater, but kind of the same thing, just as Bolton, just a precautionary. I think he was back at practice either yesterday or something like that. But glad to have him back, and even kind of positive even from that was Joe Alt got some reps over at left tackle in Slater's absence. They put Pipkins over at right, so it might be something that potentially happens later on down the line, maybe before the season or during the season. I like that Harbaugh is kind of getting his linemen shuffling around, trying to get them to play different positions, because like we just talked about with Alex and Bailey, it's always good to have guys that are versatile and can play different parts of the line. Obviously with Alt a little bit different, he's kind of like just tailor-made for left tackle, so as much as you'd want to see him move around, there's really only one place you want to see him, and that's on the left side, protecting the blind side. But it's early, we still have a whole month, we have preseason, so I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into it just yet. But speaking of O-lineman and somebody who is very similar to that mold of Bailey that we were just talking about, Jamari Saylor did go down with an injury. I believe it was yesterday. Got rolled up from behind, so that's never a good sign. Hoping obviously for the best there, as like with Bailey, he's kind of like that 6th O-lineman you could bring in. Played left tackle, played right guard last season, so he's very versatile. And like you said, to bring in for those 12 at 12 formation or those jumbo packages. So hopefully we get good news from him. I don't want to see him gone, as DZ mentioned earlier. We know all about not having depth at the O-line position, and he was really the only proven depth we've had. So yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to see that. But apart from that, injuries have been pretty good. I feel like it's already been a difference. Yeah, Mr. Alt definitely had a welcome to the league moment. Joey Bosa, yeah, Alt has definitely he's looked good in training camp, but the veterans have they've made their mark on him, to say the least. But it's bound to happen. He's a rookie. There's probably going to be moments during the season where he gets beat badly by maybe
Actually,
not.
If I can jump in on that. I think a lot of fans, specifically fans, and then I also think that the media is just doing what they do best, and that's being dishonest. Where you need to give Alt some credit in these training camps and camps because they're being taught in camp to not do certain things. They're being taught to not push back or be overly aggressive. The purpose of camp for a lot of the linemen, even with pads on, is to simply show that they're getting the technique right and that their pads and pad levels are where they need to be. The defensive linemen, a lot of the times also in camps, because this isn't like a two-way competition. This is not, Alt isn't going to be trying to then roll Bosa, right? Like that's
Right.
not going to be his goal in life. Is the Bosa as a defensive player will have a leg up in a camp scenario, in a camp setting. And so I think we need to be, look, I'm sure it was wonderful for all the Chargers fans to say, Bosa's back, baby.
Oh no, I'm not putting any stock into that.
OEB, the return.
Yeah, but
And
at the
plus,
same
he's
time,
trying to learn the right tackle position when all he played at Notre Dame was left tackle. So there's going to be a learning curve there too.
Yeah, and so I just think, like, yes, a college guy to the NFL is going to have a learning curve. They're going to have less of a learning curve when they played at the college level at his level. Okay, so that's something else that's kind of, ought be mentioned, I think. But he's going to be at a severe disadvantage because he hasn't learned how to training camp yet. Right. Not only is he learning the NFL, he's also not learned how to training camp yet. And so this is his first year. He will get there. I hate to see it because he's an opponent on a team that I was hoping we'd just beat, but he is that good and he likely will be that good. Fair enough. But I think your real test, if we're going to be honest, is going to be preseason, where Alt's goal in life at that point is to throw a guy backwards, like, for fun.
And he can do it too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's what he does best. So I feel like someone like Alt is definitely looking forward to these preseason games more so than just training camp. But yeah, I mean that's really all kind of the news for the injury front for the Chargers. Yeah, we'll be lucky if we get him for 10+ next year. So whatever happens. But yeah, as far as injuries concerned, all things considered, pretty good to say the least.
Awesome. So Jack, your Raiders, and then we'll talk about more pleasant things like plays and stuff. Things that are better than, hey, this guy's gone for the season.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I got to salute my brothers out there. I got Robert Pena, I got Ed Winchell, I got D Menace, I got AE, Cool Kev, Estrada. So these are all my brothers that I talk to. I'm glad you guys came on to hop on this show, but I talk to these guys all the time in different chats too. So it's good to see you all on. Yeah, the Raiders have got a lot of stuff going on. So the biggest one is still, we've kind of talked about it before on the PUP list, is Colton Miller. He's got a shoulder injury from last season. He still hasn't seen the field. There is no ETA on him, and that is like, he's our left tackle, and there is not a guy on this squad that can replace him. So that makes me nervous because there's no sign in the future going saying, okay, this is when he's going to be back. It's not out there yet. So that's right now is going to be the biggest loss, and it'll be interesting. And so right now, Pete is the one who's replacing. They signed from the Saints, so we're going to see. I think he's kind of like for me, it's kind of like a short-term, type answer, not a full season type answer. So, yeah, I am nervous about that one. JPJ, our second-round pick, he's got a shoulder injury too. He's on the PUP list. So who knows when he's going to come back. So right now, filling in for him is Cody Whitehair, which, he came over from the Bears, which is part of Guestby's system. So he's been kind of over there. He started off early in his career at, left guard, and kind of went to center, and then he's gone to right guard, and now he's back at left guard, but he's getting up there in age too, so definitely not a long-term answer. MJ Jebensire, he's out. Brandon Faison still recovering from last year, so he hasn't seen the field yet. Guys that I don't really know about, I think he's one of your guys there, Robert, maybe Tula Griffin. He's out. I don't know the kid very well. And then the most interesting one is John Jenkins. There's not an injury report on him. So he's just like MIA, and he's your starting nose tackle. So I don't know what's going on with his situation, but I've been trying to scour for information on him. Why is he out? There's not an answer for that. So I don't know what's going on with that guy right there. Munford in practice, he hurt his hand going up against Max, and he left the field to get his hand taped. And then DJ Glaze, which was our third-round pick, he's our swing tackle, kind of came in. So it was kind of interesting to see that he came in instead of like Dalton Wagner. So I think AP is just trying to start like some of his younger draft picks at this point since it's so early in camp. But yeah, the list is long, and it's like, and a couple of them make me nervous.
Yeah, a lot of linemen.
Yeah, JPJ definitely sounds like the worst of the bunch there to lose.
Well, Colton Miller's
Miller.
actually the worst one to lose because
your
he's
left tackle not being
Yeah.
Sorry, your left tackle not being there and not having an actual ETA date and or at least working on the sidelines, I would say is your bigger concern out of anyone on that list because he's your starter and that's your blindside protection, right? But
yeah, and he's been a stalwart for years. So
yeah,
he's the best
Kind of
offensive
leader.
lineman that on the whole squad. So yes.
Do you think that the signing? Because I honestly was kind of, I guess, I wouldn't say confused. I mean, a little confused when they signed Pete because I mean he's a starting caliber tackle, and I was like, why are they doing that? You know, when they have two already and drafted another. So do you think that signing is kind of an indication that they're pretty positive Miller's not coming in until, you know, like midpoint of the season?
It's a possibility because you can't get any answers. The Raiders aren't saying anything, so I think that's a very good possibility because, you know, last season he would even play, even with the injured shoulder. He was kind of like, okay, I'll be your backup. I'll be the backup. If you really need me to come in, I'll do it. You know, so I love the fact that he's tough and he's willing to do that. But, you know, Alex, that's a good point. That really could be a reason.
Yeah, but you said he was playing hurt, and
He
sometimes,
did.
yeah, but sometimes that
Makes it work.
That's a double-edged sword. In fact, that'll come back and bite you even worse because what could have been we'll call it relatively minor injury for him, for your team, which was generally speaking likely not going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying, I just say it was likely not going to make the playoffs. Losing your left tackle for a massive portion where you have a legitimate chance at being truly competitive in 24 is not good. Like, I don't know how to put it. It's just not good.
Well, that's why I'm glad they got Pete in there because, you know, he's got 3 Pro Bowls under his belt, but he's an older guy. Like I said, it's not ideal for the long term. Short term, yeah, I can see him doing it, but it'll be interesting to see, you know, at some point what they say.
And then the next question there is going to be: do you see waiver wire like cut candidates and stuff from the 53 cut down? Do you see the Raiders maybe actively looking for quasi or starting caliber tackles if they truly believe that he's that far out? If you're going to try to get someone to, I mean, we just spoke about it with Bailey, right? Which is, you know, all right, so who's the guy that's going to truly spell him on your roster if Pete goes down, which is the other challenge. You end up with an older guy in the roster, which is they might be healthy now, but you do run the risk of, you know.
No, we don't. I'm glad. Isn't he on the Chargers now? I'm glad that guy's gone.
Yeah.
I called him Leatherface.
Yeah, but basically the point there is you know,
so
a starting caliber lineman, A, they don't grow on trees, and 2, you want to have a guy that can backfill Pete, since you know that Miller is not going to be there if he gets hurt.
So this is what they're going to do. If that were to, I don't know, I don't really see that happening. So I think what they would do is they would take Munford, which he can play the left side, he can play the right side as well. They'll move Munford over at that point to the left side, and then they're going to probably start like a guy like DJ Glaze, or they'll also look at Dalton Wagner. So that's their depth right now for the tackle position. But I really don't see it, you know, going outside the organization.
Okay.
I'm trying to think like who's even available to get at left tackle.
No. Robert, my point is that you're going to end up with a team for sure, maybe 3, that will have an aging left tackle that's on their roster, that their young rookie that they drafted behind them just looks so good in camp that they want him to start. Right? Or you're going to end up with a team that's going to use that as an opportunity to, you know, they'd rather keep the guy unless if they're you know, 3rd round left tackle that they took a flyer on, and then they saw him in pads and in preseason was like, oh, that guy. Okay. Well, you know, we got the starting left tackle right now who's making, say, 12 mil, but it's like, only like 4 of it's guaranteed or something like that, or 5 of it's guaranteed. Well, okay, let's start the young guy that looked really good in training camp, who we believe is starting caliber. And if they have another dude on their depth chart that they feel can kind of step in if need be, then why wouldn't they want to save 7 mil? Because then that might allow them to bolster a position that they don't have the luxury of all this depth at, right? Like teams hedge their bets in the offseason to make sure that you stack yourselves at positions that are critical. But if you get lucky, and that's, let's be honest, a starting caliber left tackle in like the 2nd or 3rd round, buy a lotto ticket, good for you. And if that's what you got, then you're gonna maybe make some changes that you otherwise wouldn't have made, and that could free up someone. That's kind of what I was referring to when I was saying that with Jack, where you may end up with a starting caliber dude that just kind of floats out on the cut deadline and might be available.
So you kind of what Rick in the chat just said, Mumford, and then Wagner. So those are your tackles. For Alex, there's an injury, non-injury on your team. It's Kermit Mahomes. I heard he didn't get hurt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when's the next Raiders puppet show?
Yeah, no kidding.
Is that a weekly thing or no
Well,
more?
I heard the Muppet was safe and sound and non-injured.
That's good. We don't support animal cruelty on this show. So.
No, we do not.
No.
Absolutely.
No. So that's kind of the injury kind of roundtable there in terms of where we're all at. I mean, not that this is a game, but I certainly think that a dude breaking his leg and being out for basically the season is probably the worst that we've seen so far. And we hope to not see any more of even close to that caliber for the rest of the season, hopefully, even if we can get that far. But in terms of what we've seen from camp, Robert, getting some more from you and the Chargers. DZ gave us some great info last show on the Chargers. Get some more from you in terms of backfilling some of the Chargers content here. What did camp look like this past week? We all saw pads come on in terms of varying numbers and durations, but we all saw pads and we saw 9-on-7s and some other stuff. So, what did you see? What did you like? Who did you like, etc.?
Yeah, definitely one of the more kind of exciting times of the year. We finally get to see, a lot of the rookies kind of in their first quote unquote game action. I know it's not actually a game, but, actually running plays, playing drives, things like that. So right off the bat, obviously Joe Alt has just been just so much fun to watch. I mean, just like it was fun watching Herbert be, quote unquote, the tallest guy on the field. But you just see Alt and the way he moves and the way the dude, you just can't help but like smile and laugh because you're like, that guy plays for us. Like, that's just like such a great feeling. Like, I'm like completely over the draft of wanting a wide receiver because leading into that next part of who else has looked amazing and really taken just supreme control of that wide receiver 1 spot. Wasn't a tough spot to win, but Ladd McConkey has just been absolutely electric. He's definitely been Herbert's favorite target so far in just the short week and a half that we've had so far of training camp. He's a, not to compare him to Keenan Allen, but he is a shorter, faster, I know, but in the way he did cook
Derwin James.
in the way he runs his routes, he's a very crisp route runner. And a better example for that would be somebody like a Wes Welker or someone like yeah.
Are you just thinking of what other white guys?
Yeah, I mean, but that's what he is.
He's a spark plug.
But here's the thing, he's a little bit more than just a spark plug, because a spark plug makes it seem like he's just kind of like a gadget guy, somebody who would come in for a couple plays here and there. He's definitely somebody who I feel like can be in all 3 downs. I mean, he plays out of the slot, so it definitely opens up yeah, it definitely opens up some more for the offense. And another wide receiver who's been really impressive so far, and just kind of like the early ways we've seen him, is DJ Chark, who he was just kind of like, we took a waiver on him, if he pans out, but he he beat out Quentin Johnston for wide receiver 3. I mean, hey, not to be, and it sucks because he's my own team, but I did say from the beginning I would not be surprised if Quentin Johnston gets cut before the end of camp. I just don't like. I know he's putting in the work. I know he's a hard worker. Like, don't get me wrong, his work ethic is there, but the dude just cannot catch a ball consistently, and it's like, if you're not able, here's the thing, if you're dropping balls in training camp, you're definitely going to be dropping them in the real game, because Herbert's definitely not, he's probably throwing like 40% of what his actual, arm power is. He's not trying to go crazy here in camp. So if you're not catching stuff now, there's no way by the time games come around you're going to be catching stuff. And I mean, we saw it last year. He catches better stuff from Easton Stick. He caught like a Hail Mary ball in training camp, like a simulation ball. And I mean, it's...
Yes, Big E, you are correct.
Absolutely. He's absolutely JJ.
Well, what you need is a Patches O'Houlihan to come in and really, you need a Patches O'Houlihan
really bring the team together,
to really bring that wide receiver room together, and really, I think the motivation needs to be on the way for Quentin Johnson, and you can start by throwing wrenches at him.
Let me go ahead, Robert, and ask you. This is just for my own personal gain here. I got a question for you and a question for Jack.
All right.
If I'm looking at DJ Chark to say add to a dynasty roster, would you do that over Trey Tucker? Because that would be who I get rid of. So I guess, Jack, do you think Trey Tucker's going to actually do anything this year?
Yeah, I do. So after, Galloway, Gallup retired, it kind of made me think, I'm like, is he still kind of hurt? Or is he, because, one of the talking about camp guys, Trey Tucker is like, he stepped up. He's looking hot.
Damn it.
He is really playing well. He's one of the guys that's on my list right now that I was going to bring up. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. This is just a
Tucker's
soft fantasy segue and a preview into our later segments.
The only thing I can say, I just wonder how many snaps he's going to lose to Brock Bowers. That's the only thing.
Yeah. This is a conundrum, because I invested in Quentin Johnson last year and thought I was going to be a genius. I'm like, I'm getting murdered.
Him immediately.
I can't, dude. Because the minute I do, he's going to start catching everything. This is how it works.
You know what? If he does good, it will be with another team. And if you want to take the risk of wherever he goes, if he goes to the Chiefs and starts catching everything,
Nah, just kidding. Dude, once a body catcher, always. I mean, look at Valdez Scantling. I thought maybe Mahomes would make him look better. No, he lost games for us.
That is, it's
he
so
played
funny
himself out of his contract.
Quentin Johnson had such a similar...
He lost a game for you.
Yeah, he lost the game for us. It was the Packers game last year. Perfect pass down the sideline. He extends out for it, and it's just in and out. And I'm like, yeah, no, this dude's cooked. It's not happening.
Right.
I would definitely invest in DJ Chark though, because he's currently wide receiver 2.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna look at my lineup a little further.
Yeah, I'm really not. Yeah, I'd say that's a solid bet right now. But besides the wide receivers, defenses look pretty solid. Looks a lot better than what it did last year, just in the few training camps that we've seen. That's absolutely a welcome sight. I believe Derwin's looked all right, besides the one play where McConkey cooked him. But Cam Hart has been impressing pretty well as a rookie. Dan Henley, the second-year guy, linebacker, he's been showing out pretty well as well. Him and Will Dissly kind of got into it a little bit of a chirping match there in practice. So I mean, I love to see that. I love to see the intensity. It's already looking more like Harbaugh's team than what we saw from that bum fraud. I don't even want to say his name last year. And I mean, even the players are just coming flat out, and they're not even trying to hide it. They're like, yeah, it's a completely different team. Practices are completely different. I mean, the scheme is just. I mean, we all knew it. Like, and this is the only reason why I say not to get into the records too much, but kind of addressing last week's show. This is why I think the team has a chance to really take a big step forward this year, not just like a 3-4 win step maybe, but like a legitimate 6-7 win leap from last year. And it's purely because yeah
How could you?
God, how could
no.
you? If you say his name 3 times, he appears. But yeah, that's the only reason why I feel like this team could take a huge leap, and it's because the defense was so just absolutely garbage last year, like bottom tier, bottom of the league. And I feel like if Harbaugh can just get these guys, because I'll be the first to say it, these like probably half these dudes on the team were not playing up to the level. Now that being said, there's going to be some. Yeah, he never will be. No.
Yeah.
Now there's some. Yeah. The flip side to some of these guys, some of these younger guys playing up to their level. A couple of these veterans are definitely going to take a step back. I don't think Khalil Mack's going to get 17 sacks this year. So there's definitely going to be some regression on the veterans' parts.
Thinking 18, 20.
If Khalil Mack gives me 18-20 this year, he's just like a timeless wonder. And he might go down as one of the he already will be, but he will truly go down as one of the pantheon great pass rushers if he can put up that this year in year. What is he in now? 13, 14? I may be way off with that, but I know he's played a long time.
He got drafted the same year as Carr. So
yeah, he was the year after Von Miller, I think.
He got drafted in here we go.
So Carr
2014. So
shit. So he's gonna be barely approaching the decade mark. Okay, so you know what? That's actually not as terrible. Especially for being a pass rusher, and he's not the primary DZ. I definitely. If Bosa can give us anything, man, like literally,
he's showing up saying, "Go for it." Statistics are on our side.
Punts are illegal.
I think Staley's going to start his own show. He's going to do a Madden show. That's because that's what he played in the NFL. He played Madden.
Yep. Yeah. I will say though, I love that we can all come together and agree that this guy was just absolutely dog shit, and it was just absolutely atrocious head coach.
Yeah.
Because you saw it, and you see it this year with the huge difference. We couldn't have gone like polar opposite from head coaches than from Staley to Harbaugh. Like, it's just such a welcoming sight, and I'll just end it there. It's definitely been a very positive training camp so far. I'm going to knock on wood again for the injuries, because that is pretty much the only thing that can derail my excitement for this season is, losing somebody big.
The only thing I'm going to say that you may want to reel in just a little bit on some of your prediction there is you didn't have the benefit of a complete offseason. And what I mean by that is you had guys that were kept on your roster. Yes, you got rid of some of them, but you had contracts that were I remind you, Robert. Yeah. Actually,
Vic Fangio, I respect though.
Vic Fangio. I have some comments about all these Broncos fans that are
calling for his head.
He was darn good, and I also think that Broncos country just unfortunately is not giving enough negative press or credit to the Fangio era, because you had John Elway, who was sitting in the background playing the role of puppet master,
taking Paxton Lynch,
and taking like really
Joe Flacco.
Yeah, like honestly, who throws a gaming controller in the middle of a game? But that was Paxton Lynch in terms of, just how bad he was. And I just think that there's a bit of there's a lot of meddling that was going on, and you needed to look no further than draft picks that were getting to see the field when you saw veterans that we already had on the team that were clearly better. And the draft pick that Elway had picked was seeing the field, and they had no business seeing the field. And then you churn through head coaches because you can't put together a cohesive, vision for what you're trying to do because you're always trying to go after new and shiny. We are now starting to see with the Denver Broncos, which is a good thing. Like this is the start of change. This is what you want. Is you're starting to see a cohesive vision in terms of the types of players, how the roster is being built, and some semblance of vision in terms of what they're wanting to do. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with you, Robert, which is you got rid of some of the dead wood or dead weight in the roster and that kind of stuff. But was it enough to allow Harbaugh to get enough there to implement his vision? I'm not so sure, but I do agree. I do think you're going to start to see improvement, certainly better than you have, where you're going to say, we were at least competitive.
Yes.
Like we lost by a field goal, or, hey, do you know what? Like we're starting to see that there's a vision for this position group, but we just don't have the personnel there. But guess what? If you have to focus on a single personnel group, man, you can knock it out the park.
Yeah, and with this season, what's cursed us in the past, and I'll be very quick here, we have been very competitive. It's just the reason why we're losing by 3 here or there, wherever, 2, like however many games it was, we lost by 1 possession or something like that. A lot of that was you either blew a huge lead or you were getting blown out so early that the other team you were playing just kind of sat back and kind of let you back in the game, and you score some last miracle.
Especially when he's riding a Segway.
Changes draws.
His draws. Oh man.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, so a lot of the one possession losses were us collapsing or just getting blown out early on,
or
and then,
a terrible coach choice.
Yeah, or terrible coaching. Now I feel like it's going to be a lot more competitive. We'll be neck and neck maybe the whole game, and then it'll be like a drive here that kills us, or by their offense or something. But I feel like my one thing, and 11-12 wins for us is the absolute peak ceiling for us. Like there's no way in hell we go higher than that. If everything goes perfectly well, that's probably the highest we can get to. Basement's probably around 6-7 wins again. But I think we finish more around 8 or 9. I feel like that's like a solid, because we went 5-12 last year or whatever it was. I feel like we can improve by at least 3 wins. I feel like Harbaugh is good enough for 3 wins, with the current roster that he has, and it's going to be a lot on the young guys. It's going to be Harbaugh. It's Harbaugh or bust.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll throw it over to you, Alex.
So I'm gonna, Alex, interested in the Chiefs in terms of how you guys have looked like in camp. I've heard some interesting things actually from Chiefs camp myself.
What's that?
There's a bit of a conundrum that's happening right now in terms of Pacheco, like just showing out at camp, and it's kind of really put a wrench into that we want to throw it all over the field narrative, it sounds like, which is it's hard to ignore a running back that's looking that good.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah,
they call that first world problems, I think.
Right, for a 7th round pick too.
Yeah,
who's like on a dirt cheap contract for 2 more years. But he is. It seemed to take that proverbial next step forward, and kind of from everything that coaches are saying about him, has kind of stepped into more of a face of the franchise role than supporting cast member. And yeah, I think that we're in a unique position, or the Chiefs are in a unique position compared to like, the years when they had Tyreek Hill, and that they actually have a viable running game. Where like, I mean, the year they won the first Super Bowl, their running back was Damian Williams. You're like, who? And it's like, yeah, I mean, well, they had Kareem Hunt, obviously that happened, but I mean, this is the first time since Kareem Hunt they've had a viable, like bell cow-esque running back that you can run your offense through on top of everything else. So, it's I think great to see how they're kind of implementing that now in their big team periods. But yeah, I mean, it's only a good thing when you're adding explosive, deep threat speed guys to an offense, that you can kind of still effectively run the way you did last year.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then you also have some speed from I mean, Zamet is an example of speed. I mean, the dude's elusive and quick. Although I do wonder how much offense he'll get. If I actually see Zamet as a guy that's going to be used very similar to Jaleel McLaughlin for the Denver Broncos. I see him getting like 4 to 5 touches a game kind of thing, maybe 6 touches a game.
Yeah.
And you use him as an additional wideout on some of the other plays, which forces the other team to not just play you one-dimensional when they're on the field.
Yeah. No, and it's, I mean, everything he's done so far, I mean, he seems to be getting the praise of everyone, and I think improving almost rapidly every day. I think I said this last week or maybe the week before. I seem to be talking about him a lot, but he's kind of an exciting player. This first preseason game will be a big tell of how they plan to use him for the regular season. I think he makes the team regardless, just by how they're trying to get him, quickly involved in things. But yeah, I mean, he's getting work at wide receiver. He's getting work at running back. I mean, pretty much every special teams he's trying. So, I think once we see how they use him in the first preseason game, like we'll kind of get a sense of how many touches they plan. But I think you're probably right in that he'll just be, more of a special teams player, maybe a return guy, because you can't not utilize his athleticism in some way. You got to give him the ball in some way.
I would be surprised to see him use like kind of like excuse me, like how Austin Eckler was used in his like rookie year, where he's kind of like, Melvin Gordon was the bell cow, and you, like you said, you bring him in maybe 6-7 snaps, throw him out wide a little bit, and he'll prove his worth that way. Another dynasty option pickup potentially if he's not already on your team.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm in a dynasty league with a lot of Chiefs fans. So all those guys somehow get picked up like the same time the news is dropping about them. I don't know how, but it just works that way. But yeah, I mean, you got to be excited about Zamet or Zimet. I still don't know how I'm supposed to say his name. And yeah, I mean, once we see the first game and how he looks against live competition, like I think it'll be a big telltale sign of where he'll be once we get to the regular season.
Yeah, I actually think that his best position where you're going to like the most of his plays will be from the running back spot.
Yeah, that's where he's getting most of his work.
Although I think where he'll be the most dangerous is when he's used in a Darren Sproles type way.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if you've paid attention or looked at his rugby tape at all, which I have, just because I can dissect that pretty quick. And he's an ideal candidate for that. I mean, Robert, your analogy to Eckler is, I think, a spot on one. Darren Sproles and kind of how they used him as another kind of great kind of likeness in terms of, I think, where he can be the most dangerous, where a dump out throw or kind of a lateral throw into some space to allow him to catch it in stride. And if you pay attention and saw what his true skill set is when you see him playing on the rugby pitch, I mean, that that dude's dangerous, and I mean like legit dangerous.
He's going to be a terror on punt
No,
return.
I agree. I mean, that's kind of how I thought they, envisioned using him. Because honestly, I mean, since 2 years ago when Jerick McKinnon had like 9 receiving touchdowns out of the running back spot, and they brought him back, and I think he got hurt and just didn't really ever catch on. But you could tell they've made moves to try to find someone to fill that type of role again. And he was used, not to the level of Darren Sproles or Eckler and how effective he was, but I mean, he was a reliable option that one season. And that's kind of how I envision them using him, as like a third down back, or, maybe even go, 2 backs in 2 backs, like split backfield, and use them, running out of that. But yeah, I think that's where you get probably the most out of him, is return game and special teams, and change of pace, catching passes out of the backfield.
Yeah, I agree. And is there anyone else that you've seen some interesting things from, maybe defense or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, well, he was one I planned to talk about, so we started that off the right direction. But there's a few more on the offense that I think are to Chiefs fans, I would say, like, more of a surprise than, like, obviously Worthy's been doing good outside of the clip that came out today of him getting bullied around, but that's going to happen. Kingsley Sumatia, I think that's how you say it, the left tackle out of BYU, is I know I talked about the kind of position battle between him and Wanye Morris last week, but every practice this week when they've gotten to the team periods, he's been the starting left tackle. So I think he seems to be having the edge, at least for now, at that spot, and we'll see how that progresses as the preseason goes. But that's certainly exciting to have your rookie second round pick, edging out the guy that started some games last year and was a high pick himself. So good for him. And then keeping it with the offensive line, the other rookie that they draft, I think 4th or 5th round, Hunter Norzad out of Penn State. With Joe Thuney being out, he's been kind of getting a lot of left guard work, and certainly catching the praise from Nagy, and Mahomes even talked about how he's been working, and I think that only further helps things if you have your rookie lineman potentially being more ready than you thought at the start of the season. I think that they're still planning for Joe Thuney to be back and full 100% come week 1. But it's good that he's getting kind of the opportunity to get more reps than he probably would, and making the most of it. So those are 2 out of the O-line room that I think help answer some. At least Kingsley certainly helps answer a question with the absence of Donovan Smith, and who is going to win that left tackle spot, and it seems to be him. Going back to the running backs a little bit, Deneric Prince has been another standout. He was an undrafted running back out of Tulsa, I think 2 years ago, and they've kept him around the practice squad since. And he's very much to this point been RB2 behind Pacheco with the 1 group. So certainly worked his way up the depth chart a little bit from where he's been the past couple of years. He has a hell of good YouTube highlights if you go watch him. Like, he killed, I don't even know what Tulsa's in, like Conference USA or something. But hella athletic. Can do anything with the ball in his hands, and it's exciting to see him get the opportunity. And I think that only kind of further tells you, that Luis and some of these other younger guys are getting a shot because they don't have faith in Clyde and the guys that have been in that room in the past couple of years. Then defensively, the first round pick last year, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the defensive end, he's, I think, taken a next step forward. He was a very raw prospect. That was an edge rusher out of the Big 12. where there's like no defense played and everyone just passes the ball. And I think needed was definitely more of a project than you would like with your first round pick. But I mean, Reed has been giving him all the praise. This off season, he's had the opportunity to get more reps than he probably would with a Minihue being out, and he seems to be taking the most of it. So that's only a good positive thing when you're young. Pass rusher can work his way into the rotation. That still has Karlaftis and Chris Jones, and hopefully a Minihue comes back to what he was pre-injury. But exciting to add that into the pass rushing fold. And then the other rookie that's been getting, I guess, younger player that's been getting praise is rookie Kamal Hayden, who's the defensive back they took out of Tennessee. I think he tore his ACL, or he only played like 5 or 6 games his senior year, which is part of why he dropped down, which is like your peripheral Brett Veach type pick. Like, let me take the dude that should have been a first, second round pick in the 4th, just because of something that happened, and hope that it pans out. But, he is like literally a Spags prototype of what he wants in a defensive back. And you can tell that he fits, the things he's looking for, because he's been moving him around. He was a corner, outside corner at Tennessee, which he's played that. He's played the slot. They've had him kind of play the Justin Reed role. So certainly exciting to see, just this crop of young guys that they brought in already kind of getting their footprint down and, working their way into contributing roles. So, been a good camp so far, and excited to see these games get going, to see, how these guys look in live organized violence.
I agree.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So with my Denver Broncos, some interesting things happen. Obviously, there was we just spoke about the injury there, so that obviously changes the look of who's playing where in camp and stuff like that, as you kind of go through the 1s, 2s, and 3s. Some notable changes, actually, and this is definitely going to get some discussion. I guarantee it. Is Zach Wilson effectively got demoted?
damn it!
Shocker.
So
Yeah, big shocker.
Who would have
Well,
thought?
I'm not going to lie. I am a bit surprised, because I think it's a bit premature. I think when you're playing against guys that you can't rely on protections because you're playing in camp and stuff like that, I think you need to see what he does in like a preseason game before you officially kind of like, kick him down the thing. But Nix has been doing very well. He's been picking up things quickly. He's been making throws. He's made some really dumb throws too. And this is kind of why my sentiment has been on the show. It has been consistently, and I am pushing back on those on Twitter or X with the same comments, which is there has not been a successful quarterback that has sustained success, generally speaking, if they've been thrown into the fire right away. They all of those quarterbacks that are slated and start like right away off the top have typically not won a Super Bowl in their rookie contract. And I believe the last one to do it is Russell Wilson. I believe all other rookies that have started in their rookie season have largely fizzled out at this quarterback position and have ended up moving on from their original team, which is what my concern is that Bo Nix, I think, has some real potential, but I think that he needs some patience to allow him to read defenses, to allow him to be put in scenarios, to assess a scenario in front of him, but where it doesn't matter, where he can start saying, that's going to happen, that's going to happen, that's going to happen, and then let the play out and see if he got it right or not. Like that's the type of stuff that you need to allow a rookie to self-reflect on whether or not he does something wrong. Is he doing the right thing? Why is he doing it? And start to reflect back on your own decisions where it doesn't matter as much, where you're not going to end up getting yourself shell-shocked and dare I say, irreparably damaged as a quarterback at the NFL level, just because it is so complicated and such a critical cog in an NFL team that these quarterbacks typically fizzle out so quick. And
Richie, I have a question for you on that, because I look at it with Stidham being there for a year. He's a veteran, so he's already has a leg up over your other quarterbacks. You invest a first round draft pick, and then of course you pick up Wilson. So it really Stidham's already one step ahead. So really you're having those two guys battle it out for number 2, in reps. So and plus you invested a first round draft. I can see why Wilson maybe be the third, quarterback right now. But we're 2 days into camp. So I mean, I think I can see that all turning around. But I can see why there's that pecking order. Just because of the experience and investment in the first round pick. Do you feel that's a part of it, or is it just that he's not playing?
I'm pretty sure egos are flying here, right? Like
It's the NFL.
This is the NFL. Like
It's Peyton's guy.
Yeah, this is Sean Payton's guy. Like Sean Payton has been on record saying, aside from the guy that was picked number 1,
whose shocker was everyone's guy.
who was for 31 other teams, for 31 other teams in the NFL, he was their guy.
I don't know, man. You see all these teams paying their QBs.
Yeah, that's crazy in itself.
Yeah, you can't fix stupid. But anyways, the point here is, like, I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with the premise of what you're saying. My point, though, is it is a stupid decision to simply play a guy because you picked him early. He should be playing because he has earned and overtaken the spot and or proven that he deserves the chance to try to overtake the spot. And he either rises to the occasion or not. And the concern that I have with trying to allow a dude this early, as in like year 1, to kind of go out and jump the gate and do all that kind of stuff, is he's got 4 other years or 3 other years, if you don't pick up the 5th year option, to make up the difference. But if you ruin him in year 1 and he can never overcome that come year 2, you've wasted that draft capital. Like you've literally thrown it out the window, and it makes no sense. I truly appreciate Broncos country and their want to see your first round quarterback take the field. I get it. I even understand the egos that are at play with the general manager and the head coach to say, oh, don't worry, hold my beer, watch this kid go out and play. I'm his coach, or I'm his GM, or we put together this team to make sure this guy could do the thing. The short answer is, like, as special as you think you are, there is stats to say that you're likely wrong. And history books are I won't say undefeated, but history repeats itself, and you have to prove yourself a pretty special individual to then basically, flip the bird to history and say, I'm better than you. Right? And so the answer is probably no. You're probably not going to get more out of your rookie quarterback. You're probably not going to end up having him go on to a Super Bowl. You are much better off having Stidham go through the majority of the season, and or have Wilson and Stidham go back and forth to go through the majority of the season. Have Nix step in a game here or there, or whatever the case may be. Like if there's a team that is not doing well, for example, and you have Stidham that is doing well, then you bench Wilson as your QB2 and you bring in Nix as your QB2 that game, and hopefully you're up a bunch of scores. And then you bring in Nix at the back end of that game to get him those in-game experiences where he's playing, against better competition, but he's also playing where he's got 2 or 3 scores and he's not sitting there biting his nails, worried that, some elite level D tackle is going to come barreling down the middle like Chris Jones and take his head off.
I agree with you on that part, Rich. I have to I will say though, I'm definitely more so along the lines of you just throw them in. You throw them to the Wolves and you see if they can do it or not. Because and I get it. Look, like Mahomes, other quarterbacks like Rodgers, Love, you can say, like, I get it. I get the whole, you want them to learn the system, sit behind a veteran, take that in. I get all that.
But then
But
you
at
also
the end
have
of the
CJ Stroud.
Yeah, you have CJ Stroud, you have some of these guys that come in and just ball out immediately. Like Herbert obviously didn't get the wins, but he came in on a whim week 2, and I mean you could just see it right away. Like, oh yeah, this dude's gonna be the franchise. Like Tyrod.
I'm not even saying that you're not going to find quarterbacks that fit that mold. Like, for example, I'm quite certain that if Mahomes started playing week 1 in with the Chiefs, people would be like, why did nobody say this guy should have been the first quarterback taken in the NFL draft? Like, why? It made no sense, right? Because he came in as a virtually unknown quarterback against my Denver Broncos in the last game of the season that year when he came in and started
and put on a show.
And everyone
put on a show, whatever.
He did.
Well, I mean, it was a good game, but I mean, he wasn't like it wasn't like
no.
Wasn't that the 248 yards and like no TDs or one TD or something like that?
No, he was the reason. Like, that's the thing. He was the reason why they won the game.
Yeah, there was no Kelsey, no Hill, no Hunt. Like, it was literally him and the second team.
Yeah, and you saw Mahomes extend plays. You saw him evade pressure. You saw him making some of those plays. Like the plays that we've all seen and cursed at our TVs when we see him make. He made some of those style of plays. Now, he didn't really start to become Patrick Mahomes with that kind of banner there until the following year when he and Tyreek and Kelsey and everyone were together. And then you started to see the left-handed no-look throw and, the nonsense like that. But
yeah, the 5K 50 tuds.
Yeah, exactly. But you saw what he did. Like he was the reason why they beat the Broncos that game. The Chiefs had no business winning, literally zero.
They didn't need to,
and they didn't need to, and they still did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Broncos were broken at that point.
Yeah, he had I think Albert Wilson had 130 yards or something, and it was because of Mahomes' throws more than him doing anything. And then, I mean, it was, but and at the same time, I know I've said before, I don't, if Mahomes goes to who was taken first, the Bears, and starts immediately, I don't know that he turns into the same Mahomes that he is today. I mean, he might have, but
I'm also a part on that same belief that it's more important where you get drafted rather than when you get drafted. Yeah. And obviously Mahomes came into the ideal scenario. He had the fastest wide receiver who wasn't even unlocked yet because he had Alex Smith as your quarterback. You had the greatest tight end in the league. You had Kareem Hunt, who was pretty much in his prime by that point. You had a solid. Oh, I don't want to say solid. The defense was manageable. Yeah, it was manageable. It was a manageable defense, but the offense was all there. The O-line was there. The weapons were there. So it was just tailor made for him as soon as he came in. I mean, you knew looking at it that season that Alex Smith was the quote unquote weak point of the team, and you just needed that step forward in Mahomes, and it turned out to be the greatest draft pick arguably ever.
Ever. Well, and let's play devil's advocate too. It's like, I look at it for the Raiders situation with Aiden O'Connell. You're great. You're 100% right, Richie. No one wins a Super Bowl on your rookie year. But looking back at it, and this is where I can see Robert's point of view. Is in the way if you throw him into the fire, you throw him in the fire and let him get that experience. But again, it could hurt their egos, their confidence. But they can also be better from it going into year 2, having that experience.
My comment has nothing to do with winning a Super Bowl in year 1. My comment is even broader than that.
Okay, so you're saying on the rookie deal.
They don't win a Super Bowl for the most part on their rookie deal at all. Like zero. That's my point. Like these quarterbacks that are coming out of college now, despite the fact that they are coming in with the most throwing passing yards ever for any quarterback ever coming into the NFL. So you'd think that they would have a cheat code almost coming in from college from these young guys coming into the NFL. The last quarterback to come into the league and win a Super Bowl on their rookie deal was Russell Wilson, to my knowledge, unless I'm wrong. I don't think I am. And even then, arguably, and this is the big kind of 800-pound gorilla in the room there, it was the defense that really won them the games because Russell Wilson wasn't particularly special.
Right. Yeah, the Legion of Doom.
Well, they had the Legion of Boom.
Legion of Boom there. That was just incredible. Like, they were insane. And
Marshawn Lynch.
And they had Marshawn Lynch as a running back, which was
Doug Baldwin. Like,
was Tyler Lockett there?
I don't think
or was
from the
that,
beginning.
was that it was the year
won.
after, I think. Yeah, I think he was there for the second Super Bowl that they lost to the Pats. But yeah, I get your point, Rich.
So that's my point. I just want to kind of make a quick point of correction there to Jack. I'm not even claiming that you're going to end up with like a CJ Stroud caliber start out of the gate, which then gets you to a Super Bowl. I mean, that would be an incredible fluke just in and of itself. I'm arguing is even a much broader comment than that, even a bigger knock against not starting them, which is you're not winning a Super Bowl for the entirety of when they were cheap to you.
But by that logic, even if you sit them, every year you sit them, depending on how long you want to, like for instance, Jordan Love sat, 2 or 3 years? That's just another year you're wasting anyway. And they're going to eventually be off the rookie deal if you do want them to go to a Super Bowl.
And that's where I disagree, because what you're getting from them is you're getting them to what you don't get in college is the complexities of defense in the NFL that you have today. And it's not even close. Okay.
Right.
Look, I realize as a Chargers fan, you're jaded by Staley and what you've seen from him.
Trust me. I know.
I understand. And I apologize. Okay. But at the same time, the rest of the NFL, aside from Staley and what you saw there with your Chargers, puts up some incredible defenses. I mean, the schemes, the looks, the way that they hide things, the delayed blitzes. And you also need to remember is like, some of the things that they're used to seeing in college where it's like the dead easy throw, they make that same dead easy throw in the NFL, and the defensive back is made up and caught the wide receiver, and he intercepts it. And the quarterback's like looking at the field like, I don't understand what just happened.
But I think my response to that is you're not going to get better by just sitting on the sideline. You're not going to get better by sitting watching the other guy, read defenses. Right, you got to get in there and read the defense yourself, and you're going to make those mistakes. Like Herbert made those mistakes. Like all the great quarterbacks that start. Stroud had his mistakes. You got to let them learn. Like I don't think anybody's sitting here thinking going into a rookie year that Bo Nix is going to, light up the league and, the Broncos are going to steam the division. Like nobody's saying that, but I think it's not unfair assumption to say, well, if we just start him off from jump, week one and give him that confidence to be like, hey, you're the guy. Like we're ride or die with you.
Not only is it fair, I think it's statistical malpractice to claim that works.
I mean, it's okay. Obviously, the stats are going to say that more QBs are going to flame out starting them right away. Of course, but that's also, I mean, by that logic, there's
it's
more.
It's like a lottery. I mean,
there's more QB.
Take your chance.
It's the NFL.
It's like the same thing in the draft. Like you're taking a chance drafting these QBs. Like that's what it is. You're hoping that so if you're taking a chance drafting a guy this early with a first round pick, let's say, there should be no reason to be like, well, we need to start him right away. Like we invested the draft capital, a first round pick, whatever it may be, even if you traded up to get him, we invested in him. Let's see our investment. It's better than just waiting on it and sitting and not knowing. Then right away, like, okay, this is the guy, or this isn't the guy. And we've seen that. Zach Wilson was not the guy. I mean, I could go on and on about the QBs who have not been the guy. We already mentioned Mitch Trubisky. Trevor Lawrence has shown so far to not be the guy, and he was the #1 overall pick. So it's all a lottery. So my thing is just like, why wait on it? It's like buying a lottery ticket. The numbers are called, but you don't want to go check it yet. You're like waiting like a month or 2 months later to finally go check your numbers. It's like, just check it. Like,
No.
rip off the Band-Aid.
No, because so this is, and I don't want to go too deep into the weeds here, but this is where this is why I kind of disagree with that as a general theory. So, for example, if you're picking in the top end of the draft, your team has more holes than just a quarterback. Okay, sorry, but I'm not sorry. And frankly, if you want to argue on that, this is a whole different show.
That's fair. I'll agree with you. I'll agree with you there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. And so you have to then assume that you're missing at least some components of your offensive line, if not the entirety of your offensive line, because you ended up getting so bad that you got the first pick in the NFL draft, or at minimum within the top 5 picks of the NFL draft in order to get within a top caliber quarterback that you're going to be drafting in the early rounds. Or if you get lucky, like the Broncos did kind of this year, you have such a stacked in terms of bubble of quarterbacks within the draft this year, and other positional players like Joe Alt, who are, generational talent and just behemoths of human beings, that you just end up where top or good quality, high quality, talented quarterbacks can be found even into that kind of upper middle part of the draft there, right? And I do think that Bo Nix has got the legit potential of being a NFL starting and even NFL winning quarterback if he is put on the right track, taught the right things, and given the time to follow through the proper progressions of transitioning from college to the NFL. And where I think you've seen Mitch Trubisky, Zach Wilson, was it Sam Darnold? The list goes on. I mean, heck, I even put like Danny Dimes in that category.
Oh, yeah, he was top 10, I think, right?
I put Tua in that category too.
Yep.
Sorry, Miami, but I'm not sorry.
I'm with you on that.
Like there's been a lot of these other quarterbacks that we've seen come out of the league, even some of these ones that have just gotten their big paydays come their early signings of second contracts to try to keep their numbers down. We are clearly seeing these guys not take control of the games that they're in on their own. And you used to see like the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world. You used to see the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's, that caliber of quarterback, Joe Montana, Steve Young, John Elway, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. You saw these guys take the game over. Like the game came up into the last 4 or 5 minutes, and it was like watching a masterclass chess player at the end of the game, and you knew it was them. Like there was no doubt in your mind when you saw the checkdowns and the things that were taking place that it was those quarterbacks that were the reason why they were winning those games, and often did win those contested games because of the caliber of the quarterback. So my point ultimately is I appreciate the argument, right? You're like, I've just invested in this Ferrari and I really want to take it to the racetrack because it's awesome. But then my point here is, well, yeah, but you're an idiot driver that's never driven anything better than a Honda Civic. Do you really think you're going to handle a Ferrari on a racetrack going full tilt? The short answer is no. You're going to crash the thing and it's going to burn. So I think you need to give the driver, and in this case, the quarterback is the driver, in my opinion. You need to give them the skill sets, the time, and the knowledge to then take what they have likely in skill, add to their mental toughness and mental skill set and mental tool belt, and then throw them out to the wolves so that when they have a team that may still have a couple holes in it, when they're playing against a better divisional opponent, that they can start playing chess while the other team is trying to play a really advanced game of checkers and win.
I guess my only argument to that would be, wouldn't you know just immediately, though, based on how they perform right out the gate? Because I feel like, yes, there are some things that you're going to learn as you progress in the NFL, but I also feel like, and this is a question I'll throw back to you, do you feel like you can win a Super Bowl in this league without having that guy at QB?
No.
Okay, because I agree with that same logic. So by that sense, let's look at Brock Purdy. I know he wasn't a high round pick, but I quote unquote consider him one because they blew it with Trey Lance, and they're just right. But didn't Purdy start right away? He started his first season.
Yeah, but
not week one.
Trey Lance got hurt.
Yeah, that's right. He got hurt. Okay, but even by that logic, because Herbert was the same way. Herbert went in with Tyrod got hurt, and it was pregame, but that was week 2. But my point is, like, start these guys at least in their rookie year. Like, there's no reason why you should be sitting for your entire rookie year. You're not going to learn more on the bench the entire year than you will, let's say, half and half. And it goes back to the whole point of, I mean, look at Stroud. I know he started from the start, but he didn't have really much in terms of offensive weapons. And a lot of those guys, because of Stroud elevated a lot of that talent. And after 1 year, I'll sit back and say that Stroud is, I think, one of those guys that can, get it done at the highest level and eventually win a Super Bowl. And you found that out in his rookie year. How different would the Texans look this season had they not started Stroud last year and went with the veteran? Because right now they wouldn't be looking like, we'd be looking at the AFC South like it's going to be another probably the worst division.
All the moves they made this
correct, exactly.
Right. I think the problem here is you're pointing to what is effectively a potential unicorn, and I use potential there. We don't know if he can replicate his rookie year in his second year. This is the point, though, right? Which is, he kind of came in and was able to shrug off a couple mistakes, and he came in and was able to do a bunch of great things. There's no denying what we saw from CJ Stroud last year as being pretty special, actually, from a player at the NFL level, making the transition from college to the NFL. I am not saying anything to that to counter that as a general narrative at all. But my point is, though, is he now going to feel that he needs to be the hero? Is he going to feel that he can't, that everything then has to fall on his shoulders? Can he get around the fact that he now has more players on his team that can play, and he needs to take a step back and not be the only guy, but be a guy? And the thing with a lot of these players is the ability to look big picture, small picture, step in and step out, and kind of be able to reposition themselves is a skill set in and of itself. It is a mental skill set. Heck, most adults in the working world that have worked in their job for like 2 decades don't have the ability to put themselves in a different mental position. And they've done that job for longer than these guys will ever play football, with the exception of Tom Brady. Okay. Right. But like, that's the point, is that I just think that there's a mental component to the game of football that goes together with the physical component of the game of football. And I believe that there is a proven formula of sorts that we have seen work better than most, which is throwing feet into the fire right away typically does not yield, with very, very rare exceptions, week 1, a Super Bowl within that quarterback's rookie deal. And we've seen the reverse, or something different, be also true, where you see a guy get held back from at least year 1, or at least most of year 1, and it's had better results. Now, you can't expect a Patrick Mahomes, because that's just a fool's errand. I'm sorry.
That is a unicorn.
That is a unicorn. But I do think that the approach that the Chiefs took, which was bolster the roster, then target your quarterback, come into it with a vision and a system, I think that is a much better approach than winging it by throwing a quarterback in the first year they're playing. Sean Payton has a vision for the offense and whatnot, but we are still working through bad contracts that were signed and that came in from the former regime that we're still going through. The Chargers are in the same position. Mm-hmm. The Raiders aren't quite in the same position, but there's still players that are lingering on the Raiders that I still think, if truth be told, they're trying to figure out if they actually fit the team or not with the new look and the new direction. And I think that the Raiders, the Chargers, and to some extent the Broncos are in somewhat similar positions when it comes to that sort of thing. And I think that's a fair comment to make as well. But anyways, not to steal the whole show and go into that, but I think that was a great discussion.
I do have one other side of the coin. I just kind of wanted to hear this from you guys. So there's the other side where, like, a Jordan Love sits for so long, and he gets 1 year, and he had a good year because he sat and he learned, and he has a really good football team, but it's 1 year. And now you're having to pay him $55 million off of one season. And you don't know, really, again, you're basing everything off one season. Where if you've got to get these guys out there to play for several seasons so you can actually see what they've done. And are you really wanting to invest that type of capital? And you only have one season to see it off of. So, I mean, there's a flip side to sitting someone too long and not letting them, to get their feet wet and let's see how they fly it.
I agree that is an equal risk on the flip side of that same coin. The only reason why I would perhaps push back, and only for the Green Bay Packers, is because they are the most unique team in the NFL. And it's
very true.
Only had 3 QBs for the last 40 years.
Yeah. No, but it's not only
true.
that. I mean, Alex, that's actually a true statement. So that is also true. I mean, it blows your mind to say that out loud and actually have it be a factual statement, because I agree, that is unheard of. But on the flip side, Jack, they are also run more like a public corporation than they are a private organization or a private team. So they are run in a pure meritocracy where the best people within the organization stay, and anyone who doesn't meet their level of expectations get kicked to the curb. Whereas the NFL is a lot of a lot of times they call it nepotism.
With the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's like, hey,
that's the opposite spectrum right there.
Yeah.
Your dad used to be an NFL
you're
coach.
born. Here's your GM job.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of your dad was a friend of the family, and so
owes me a favor.
Yeah. And so stuff like that happens a lot in the NFL for these other private organizations. Whereas with Green Bay, you can clearly tell based on the way they run, they're like, I don't care about that. Like, I don't care at all about that, actually. Like, the short answer is, do we have an evaluation metrics? Do we have a matrix by which we can actually put together and evaluate these players to make sure that we're putting the best possible product on the team? And even in Green Bay's down years, they were still fairly competitive. If we're going to be honest, in the last couple of years, where they didn't really have a solid quarterback and Jordan Love was still kind of sitting and not there and whatever, right after Rodgers left, and even when he got hurt, they were still a competitive team. They weren't great. They weren't, they weren't Super Bowl caliber or anything, but they were certainly not basement dwellers.
Yeah, they weren't a team you could just overlook on your schedule. They showed up to play. Yeah,
they showed up to play. And I think that speaks to the style of the organization, the fact that everything is kind of on autopilot when it comes to the management of the organization. And so they're just run differently. They're not the Raiders. They're not the Broncos. They're not, thankfully, the Cowboys.
They're a cornerstone franchise.
They're a cornerstone franchise that is just run differently. And I think that's why you're seeing a different outcome. And so, Jack, if it was any other team, your point is not only correct,
it's heard,
but I think it's even well taken, and we completely agree. But the Green Bay Packers, because they're run differently, I think have the luxury, and I think that's an appropriate term to use here, of operating and behaving differently as well, because they do not operate and work like every other NFL team.
And they've proven that it works.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, Jack, you as much as we've been talking about this, I think you still haven't talked about your training camp players who's impressed you. Let's hear it.
Well, first of all, I got to say, Robert, your Chargers and the Rams, keeping the fans out of the, since we're within that 75-mile radius out of the stadium kind of sucks. I talked to a lot of Raider fans, behind, on different shows and stuff like that. And we, bounce stuff off of each other. So it's a little bit more limited. You have to kind of go off with the beat writers and, for the team itself. And there's been a couple, standouts, that's happened. The first one, again, I mentioned earlier that, Faison got hurt. He's not playing. And then their 4th round draft pick, MJ Devonshire, is not out there. So it's been given Jacorian Bennett, who started off as a starter last year and then, didn't play that hot, got benched. And he's showed up. He showed up to camp this year. So he's been looking good on the defense, which is, I'm really happy because in the beginning I was really hoping the Raiders would go after a defensive back because they have $34 million in cap. I'm glad they didn't do it. I'm glad they're sticking to their guns with that. And Alex, Trucker, he's added a lot of body weight and he's kept the same speed. He's been working out he's another guy that's been hot. He's worked out. He stayed in Las Vegas with AC-12. So they've been working out together all off season. So they have that connection. So I'm excited to see that. And, with Galloway not being there, retiring, I'm just going to give him more opportunities. And I'm more excited over him than Galloway or Callaway.
I just stopped keeping him. I realized I had Mac Jones, so I dropped him.
Oh, well, yeah, too bad.
We're good.
Too bad, too sad. Brock Bowers has been showing out. It's like, again, you can't get a lot of stuff, but I saw a little quick video, like 20-yard pass right over. Like he had to completely turn around, jumped over the linebacker was there, caught the ball. He's been on fire. He's been looking really, really good. Adam Butler. So, again, I mentioned Jenkins kind of MIA at this point. So they started young in the first practice, and they put in Adam Butler, and he looked good. So he was getting to the quarterback. But again, the offensive line, you got 2/5 of it not really being there. So I don't know how much that tells, but it's like he's getting noticed. But my number one guy, which Alex, you asked me about this kid, about your dynasty team. I mean, he has been flashing, is Dylan Labe. He's been taking, snaps at first team. And even AP says that he's explosive and he's nasty and he's fast. He's doing everything. I mean, he's my number one guy right now. Is just exploding on the scene. So I can't wait to see what this kid does. And I think I said this on a previous show when we talked about cuts. I mentioned, Abdullah, who's got the starting job right now. I don't think he's going to make the team. I think he's going to be gone. He's a 9-year vet because Laube is just putting on a show. The kid just can't be stopped.
Yeah.
And he's a six round draft pick.
Abdelgada and choose Labe.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I remember you reached out and it's like your buddy got him or something. So I'm sorry you didn't get him.
I was bummed. I got Trey Tucker though, so hey.
Hey, you got Trey Tucker. That's good. So those are the guys that have been hot. It's just been a little bit harder to get a little bit more information. Just because, again, they're not letting everybody into the stadium to go watch them practice. So it's like you're going off of more of what beat writers, and I don't always trust what the beat writers say. So some of them I do, some of them I don't.
Doing propaganda, dude.
I kind of, based on what you're saying, he's kind of coming off a little bit like Steve Smith did when he was drafted.
Labe, actually it's funny because they compare Labe to Eckler. And they call him the poor man McCaffrey.
Yeah, so that was Eckler. Eckler was the poor man's McCaffrey.
So I'm not disappointed with that at all. I'm like, okay, these are quality players.
Yeah. Is there any sort of any rumblings on Michael Mayer? I've just been curious. If he's at what kind of looks and reps he's getting with who, with Bowers coming in.
Well, Bowers, they're moving him all around. So Mayer's getting more of the traditional tight end position. And Bowers, they got him going anywhere, from the slot, playing fullback. So they just got him, the 12 personnel. So that 1-2 punch is going to be absolutely phenomenal.
I agree. And I mean, that's the best way to help a QB out, is run tight that end. 12, 13 personnel, get them extra protection, but also guys that can leak out at the last minute. So yeah, it's exciting. That's exciting tandem to watch as a fan looking in.
Oh, absolutely. I call it, it's probably going to end up, again, they're young, but I think it's going to end up being the greatest tandem since Casper and Chester. So Robert, Chester played for your team for a while after you went, left the Raiders.
How about the friendly ghost?
Yeah, the friendly ghost. Chester went to the Chargers at one point.
I did not even know that. But it makes sense. Chargers have a good history.
He's got a gold.
good tight end.
Hey, both those tight ends have gold jackets. So I'm comparing it to those guys, but they're the kind of the young version. So we'll see what they do. But it is to have that type of talent. It is so exciting to see what they can do, and it's like both of them are explosive. They're different type tight ends. Mayers, he's more of a traditional guy. He's a big dude, like 6'4", 6'5". 265 pounds. Bowers is like 6'3", like 243. But both of them are versatile. Both of them have hands. Both of them can move. And what they said about Bowers is that, the linebackers just can't keep up with them. And the Raiders' defense is stellar this year. I mean, there's so many guys coming into their third, fourth years that have been in the system. It's impressive to see what these guys can do against the defense itself. So when you're hearing that these guys are, standing out, that's a good thing. I'm happy to see it because, the quarterback play has been kind of meh. It's like, AP's like saying, hey, I want one of you guys to grab the bull, by the horn, see someone step up. And it's like, they're trading off every day, see what's going on. But I will say this, I am glad that, Aiden O'Connell did get as third string, got thrown into the fire just now that he has that experience, which he wouldn't have got if he was under McDaniels. He would have just sat at third string. So I'm just glad to see it, kind of, what he's doing and just kind of see how he can improve from year one to year two.
Well, I think that's fair. And I think where you guys were at last year, that was the right decision.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's a time and a place to do what we're talking about. The point being, though, is that you don't want to take a quarterback that is still unfamiliar with certain things, hasn't seen certain things. But by the time O'Connell got, starting for you guys or came into the fold, he had about half a season, give or take, maybe a little bit more than half a season, where he was able to absorb plays, get an idea for the speed of the game, see different looks in defenses, analyze the tape, live in the film room. He could choose to, pick the veteran's brain a little bit to say, all right, so when you were there, why did you do that? We know it didn't work, but why did you do that? Like, and start to, ask those candid questions and those important questions, not from a malicious rub it in perspective, like you screwed up, but to really learn, to actually get like the actual information. And that's really what you want from a symbiotic room, is to have someone who's willing to give some answers to some of the young guys when they ask the questions in the film room. And then the young guys learn. And then the question is, can they elevate their game and elevate their skill set to, get that starting job and keep it? And you've seen Purdy. We spoke about him earlier on the show. He is an example of a guy that did just that. He sat in behind and didn't start right away, and then took an opportunity and said, I'm never giving it back. And he is a rarity in the NFL, make no mistake. Just like an absolute rarity.
Well, but, yeah, you're Mr. Irrelevant, but you go on a team like the Niners and they are just stacked with weapons everywhere.
Yep. But again, that's what you get when you get a guy that's willing to put in the work, that's willing to ask the tough questions in the film room, pick the brain of the head coach, stay late and come in early, and do all of the things to improve. So the point isn't necessarily overall that AOC should never have started last season because he was a rookie. In fact, I think it was important that he started as a rookie, but they need to start at the right time so that you're not putting themselves in a position where you have no alternative. Like when you pull the rug out from, say, like, porn star Jimmy there, he would never be able to enter into a strip club again if you just pulled the starting job out from under him like that. It just would never happen, right? But the point is that it's an irreparable move. Like there is no going back from that move. The same thing goes for Alex's Kansas City Chiefs. If Mahomes looked really good in preseason, and I'm sure he did, right? I'm sure he did.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could never have benched Alex Smith and reverted back to going to Alex Smith if Mahomes struggled at all. But you can't do that. It's a one-way,
Yeah.
like it's a one-way street. That's it.
Yeah, as soon as you make that switch, it's
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
I agree
Right?
with that.
So you got to accept your fate at that point, right? And so I just think that there's a time and a place to do those things. I think AOC 4 last year, 12 this year. I think he has he started at the right time and did the right things in order to put himself in a position to potentially start taking those steps. We'll see if he does. And I hope that the Broncos don't overplay their hand and potentially put themselves in a bad position with Bo Nix and Herbert. Yeah, he wasn't meant to start right away. But if we're being honest, this is a pretty big year for him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, the coach situation, it's not really a question mark anymore. Nobody's going to be looking at Harbaugh if something goes wrong. They're going to be saying it is something else. It'll be a Herbert problem, I think, at that point.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, he's out of quote-unquote excuses, although I will say he's had some pretty good ones because, man, look at the coaching staffs he's had this past 4 years. But I completely agree with that. Yeah, this has got to be even like I understand that we're going to be a lot more of a rushing team. He doesn't have to put up the stats, the gaudy numbers, the 4K, the 35 pass, whatever. He just has to play good, sound football and honestly just win. Just win games, because that's honestly the only thing that's been the only bad mark on him, is that he just can't win games. And to that I say it's been a lot of his defense has been losing him games more than Herbert hasn't been able to win them. But I digress, and I agree with you that this year is the year where it's on him now. He's got to come through.
Yeah. So I think that's a good spot to end the show, guys, for today. I think we covered a lot of ground, got in a bit of a tangent there, but I think a good one. I think it's like that was a great little kind of quarterback discussion we had there. I think there's some good information there and some details. Again, guys, there's going to be a whole whack of additional information coming to you about the various teams across the AFC West, especially as we start getting into the intro to like preseason games and all that kind of stuff. This is going to be some really, really fun discussions as we start to see both the looks, players, commentary, whether or not we've been dead wrong or bang on in terms of our predictions and comments and stuff like that. I think it's gonna be some super, super fun times, and I'm looking forward to have my feet held to the fire if I'm wrong, and having you guys refuse to admit that I was right. But either way, I think it's going to be a great little lead in here to the season, and I think we're gonna have a great time talking about it with all four of us here. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who joined us live today, thank you very much for joining us. Click the like button. If you have not already, subscribe to the channel. And for those of you that are joining on a different channel, we do broadcast on several. There's some links below in the description. If you can jump over to the other channels and like and subscribe there as well, it helps us all out so that we can reach as many football fans as possible. And we can, do it for the algorithm, as they say. And until next week, guys, where the West Side is the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard.